Alright, so today we're going to be talking real quick about the Cat Johnny Law suppressor. So we're going to go into a little bit about Cat and then some pros and cons. So Cat, near as I can tell, is a team that works with CGS. CGS, at least, at the very least, does their manufacturing. They definitely do the manufacturing, but I feel like these guys work for CGS, just a different group, but I'm not exactly sure. The thing that really appealed to me about this company is the way they build their silencers is really it's like purpose driven. So this one, for example, they designed for a 308 bolt gun specifically, so I bought it for my 308 bolt gun. They also have a 6mm can that's not designed just for any 6mm, although it can go on any 6mm. It's designed for 6mm arc. So when you design your suppressors for a very specific use case, you really can like squeeze all the performance out of that platform as possible. So that's really appealing to me. So this one, like I said, is designed for 308 bolt gun. That's what I bought it for. So going into the pros, it sounds amazing on a 308 bolt gun. I've been around, at this point I've been around a lot of your larger 30 cal silencers. This one is 8.6 or 8.3 inches or something before you add the mount. And it sounds a little bit better than most of the 9-inch silencers I've been around. Is this the quietest 30 cal silencer I've used on 308? I really think so. It's hard to tell when you get into these like the high-end like Liberty Precision and even the Dead Air Nomad I still feel like sounds amazing. This is shorter and lighter though, and sounds just as good, if not better. So yeah, that's obviously a huge pro. Real quick, while we're talking about sound performance, I've had the opportunity to shoot a lot of 308 silencers inside a building, shooting out of a window or a door or whatever, and they're all insanely loud. Like they pretty much sound like you don't have a silencer at all. But with this one, it's super hard to explain, you just need to try it. But when you're shooting from an enclosed area, like out a door or out of a window, you hear the supersonic crack, and obviously it's still super loud, you're gonna need hearing protection, but the actual muzzle report, for some reason, sounds like it's like 10 foot in front of the muzzle, so when you shoot, all that sound happens, at least to your ears, it sounds like all that happens out of the building. So it's definitely the best 308 silencer I've used indoors by a long shot, and it's nothing you can capture on camera because it's still going to peak the mic. But if you ever get the opportunity to compare, yeah, do that because it's pretty interesting. Another pro, and I don't even really like bringing this up, but everybody asks, is the return to zero. So when you take the silencer off and put it back on, it does go back to zero, but it's really going to depend a lot on your mount. And I was lucky enough too, where when I put the silencer on, my point of impact at 100 yards didn't even change. So like I have more point of impact shift when I swap brakes versus silencers because they all have the same mount. Like it really is going to depend mostly on your mount, but at least in this case, it returned right where it should have, and it still shoots great. So accuracy and return to zero is definitely there with this silencer. Another huge pro is this thing is insanely lightweight. This is the largest silencer I own, but this is also the lightest silencer I own if you don't count my Q Erector 22, it's 22 aluminum 22 long rifle silencer, but this is the largest and the lightest silencer I own. It's like 9-point-something ounces. After I added the Reardon mount, it's like 12 ounces. So I don't really know how to describe the sound on the 308, but if you've been around like a high-end 9-inch 30 cal silencer, just imagine that, but like maybe 10% better. There's just like a better sound quality to it. I don't know if you could say like raw decibels if it's like technically quieter, but it's definitely got like a more pleasant sound. Another pro, even though I said this was designed for a 308 bolt gun, it sounds really, really good on 300 blackout. Super and subsonic 300 blackout. There's 0 first round pop with this silencer, which is, or 0 perceptible, I'm sure there's some, but you don't notice any first round pop with this thing with subsonics, and it's just really pleasant to shoot. It's really fun to shoot this around people with 300 blackout, just because like everybody just gets kind of giggly about it, and it's just a good time. So imagine that. The pros for a 308 bolt gun silencer is it's super quiet and it's lightweight. So what are some of the cons? One con that I thought was kind of interesting that I'd never had to deal with any other silencer is with the 3D printing process, there's a lot of titanium dust that's kind of left over in this thing. So Cat recommends you kind of get an air compressor and start blowing it out, get as much as you can out. But they also say not to shoot subsonic ammo until you've got between, I was told, 100 to 500 rounds of supersonic ammo through it, because that titanium dust is going to gum up your action. So the first thing I shot on this actually was a supersonic 300 blackout out of my Honey Badger, and after the 3rd round it jammed up, and then when I cleared the weapon and like cycled a bit, it sounded and felt like there was a bunch of really fine sand just poured in the action, and it gummed it up hard. So then I shot it on my 16-inch 5.56, just trying to blow that dust out. There was quite a bit of sparking going on just as you blow it out, and it starts to get less and less. But after, I'd say about 200 rounds of supersonic between 308 and 5.56 and a little bit of the supersonic 300 blackout, I started running subs through it and then didn't notice any of that dust blowing back. So I had 100 to 200 rounds of subs, and people will give you different numbers. Like I've read forums where people have had just different experiences with the amount of dust, and it kind of seems to vary. But it's just kind of weird to have a silencer, especially this expensive, to have a break-in period. In my view, it's kind of a break-in period, just kind of weird. But just keep that in mind. Like if you're just going to throw this on a gun, there's a good chance you might need to be cleaning it a little more frequently for the first little bit. That goes into the other con, which is like pretty universal with titanium silencers, is the sparking with especially supersonic ammo. Like I mentioned in my last video too, 3D printed silencers seem to have more spark, and I guess I know why now. It's because of that like leftover dust, but that should kind of ease itself and spark less as you shoot more through it. But there is a pretty significant amount of spark. But for a 308 bolt gun, for most of what you're doing, most people aren't shooting those with night vision because it's a bolt gun, but something to be aware of. There's that sparking. The other con that kind of I feel like goes along with the weight, I think this is fairly thin titanium because this thing gets hot fast. With most 308 silencer, like titanium silencers, in my experience, after like the 5th or 6th round is when you're kind of like, ooh, not touching the gun, or not touching the suppressor with your bare hand. With this one, after the 2nd round, it's kind of like borderline, and 3rd round, you're definitely not touching it. And then after the 4th round, you start to notice mirage at that point. So, but with this being kind of a lighter weight, thinner silencer, it cools down quicker. So heats up faster, cools down quicker. I don't know, kind of depends on what you're after. I kind of like it to heat up not as quick just because of the mirage, but just be aware of that. If you're a PRS guy, like that might get old for you, because if you're running a suppressor wrap, which I never like to do because it just kind of holds the heat in, just know you're going to be dealing with mirage fairly quick. But the other side of that is that's why it's so light. So if you want it to heat up slower, then you're going to need a heavier silencer. The other con is, and it really depends on who you are, but the price, this is a little bit steeper than some other titanium 308 silencers. But like with everything in life, when you get into some sort of like premium territory, you're paying more money for like a 10% performance increase, in my experience, whether it be cars, guns, silencers. Like you start to pay more for those small details. But if you're a fan of those small details and they're important to you, then I mean, this is totally worth it. To me, it's totally worth it. For a 308 bolt gun, this is the best one I've heard, and it sounds amazing. I don't notice it on the end of my gun, so it's just perfect. So the $1,200 price tag was worth it for me. If you're gonna be moving this around more and you don't really care about the weight, or you just don't care about having that, like I said, that 10% more performance increase, you can spend $200-300 less and get a silencer that performs really, really well, but it's just not gonna, this just pushes it past that 100-yard line, if you know what I mean. So is this silencer for you? If you're after like the ultimate 308 and even 300 blackout silencer, in my opinion, yeah, it's worth the $1,200. You can get like about 90% of the way there with some cheaper silencers, but you know, to get that extra 10%, that you're gonna have to pay that premium. And in my opinion, it's worth it for 308 and 300 blackout. To me, and they might get mad at me saying this, but this is kind of living up to the hype of what the Hyperion was supposed to be. Like, people touted the Hyperion, but that thing was huge. And to me, it sounds the same, if not this a little bit better, but it's smaller and lighter. So, yeah, so if that's something you're interested in, super lightweight, super great sounding 308 silencer, and this is for you.